I got it. Thank you for having me, Richard. Thank you. An intro about myself. Well, I'm feeling the burn pretty strong. I'm one of the youngest delegates across the country. I beat the second youngest by 3 months, so I'm pretty lucky for that matter. And I've been trying really hard to make sure that I'm making a name for myself while I'm still young because even though some people may underestimate my age, they at the same time listen more to me because they're a little bit surprised, which I'm very humbled by. So it's been a great journey for me, and I'm ready to talk it up. Hmm. Sure. So I guess I can go back a little bit further than that. My father essentially, my family's Iranian, and when they came to this country, they came with a very strong revolutionary passion in their hearts, always trying to fight for the working man, trying to fight for the middle class man, because these were the ones that are carrying the country on their backs. And so he used to always be involved in revolutions and protesting and rioting, and he used to always keep me involved too. So I was a little 4-year-old running around with him carrying picket signs and not knowing what I was doing until I did. And so when we saw someone like Bernie Sanders come onto the screen, someone who was representing these values of revolution, the idea of change that is so necessary to keep this country going, or at least try to get it from here, it was really important to keep ourselves involved in trying to make sure that Bernie Sanders has the opportunity to be able to essentially get to that point. So when we knew that we were able to be involved with this process, because I never knew how caucusing worked, I never knew how primaries worked, and neither did my father. He never really had the interest of voting for the lesser of two evils. We went to the precinct caucuses. I signed my name onto something to become the national delegate and to move on to the next step on onwards and forwards. And it was really fun because I never realized that my voice was important. But I stood up at my precinct caucus and I talked and I said, why do you want somebody who's going to keep on playing the political game? We need someone who wants to bring change. And so people wanted me to be there for them to represent their voice, and I never have felt that power before, but it wasn't that kind of power that you talk about that has this negative connotation to it. It's the power to be able to represent somebody who needs you. And so it was an amazing feeling to be able to push myself and to dedicate time to this because it was time worthwhile to use. And now I'm here, and I can't wait to go to Philadelphia for the National Convention and be able to represent not only my caucus, but every other person like my family who is in the lower or middle class and is looking towards this very unhopeful end that hopefully will be able to change.
Well, and that's an excellent story. And one of the things that I did also want to bring up for our audience is that you mentioned a lot of the good parts of being a Bernie Sanders supporter, but I know where you're located that it's not necessarily a heavily Bernie favoring area, and so that with your particular set of politics, you've run into some static. If you wanted to describe a little bit of that, if you felt comfortable.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I used to be a little bit worried about talking about it, but now I feel very comfortable because it's part of me now, so it's important. There definitely has been some conflict, a little bit. Surprisingly, though, even though my city of Spokane is more of a red area, we came out to be, from what I remember, a 73% turnout for Bernie Sanders, which was amazing. Every single one of us was blown away. But that doesn't mean that that last 20% were the fighting kind. I've definitely received a lot of threats ever since the very beginning of my political journey, I can say, trying to fight mostly for Muslim human rights, where people were saying that they would, quote, send me back to where I came from, or my favorite one is a guy wrote me a letter. I had two letters that I have in my mind. One being that the guy mentioned how he wants to put me on a plane, send me back to Syria, and make sure that that a drone hits me, as though it was his deep personal responsibility to make sure that he was able to control what would happen to the evil of America. And so, and the other letter was talking about how Muslims and blacks are essentially more gorilla than they are human and deserve to be wiped off the face of the planet. So I've definitely faced a lot of backlash from this, but it used to really hurt me. It did. I got called Hitler way too many times. Um, it hurt. It did. But after a while, I began to realize that the amount of people who were supporting me and not necessarily supporting me, but supporting the progressive platform to be able to continue our fight for human rights and for people's civil rights to be able to speak for themselves and to protect their honor. Those people, they rose far above those that were speaking words of hatred. It was tenfold the amount. One comment of hate equaled 25 comments of love. And that might sound very Gandhi of me, but honestly, it was moving to see how much people were trying their best who didn't even know me just to make sure that they knew that I had support. So it's been a little bit tough, but I have my little own supportive army over on the side, so I'm ready to continue fighting until the very last breath that I have.
Yeah, that's really great to hear that you've gotten a lot of positive support as well. That's helped counteract, at least in when you're processing it,
Right.
the negativity, and that's a lot of animosity for an 18-year-old to be facing.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get 18-year-olds engaged in the political process at all in general, but then with the idea of the such a ominous existence within that sphere, it's very important that I'm glad that you're able to still smile and shine through that the positive aspects of what being a part of this has been for you, and so that you haven't let those types of folks that were sending and saying those types of things discourage you from being engaged in the process.
Right. Right.
That's very big. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, right. I'm just very proud of myself too. My family's been a very big support to me, and it's been fantastic. And I'm glad for this because I wanted to quit immediately when I got all this backlash from it, but I didn't. And actually, tomorrow I'm heading off. Well, actually, in a couple of hours, I'm heading off to Seattle to be able to have dinner with President Barack Obama and the governor of Washington, along with the head of the Democratic Party,
Straight to
which
the
is
top, huh?
yeah. A little quick train to the top, which really proves to me that it's necessary to continue this fight because it's every time that I have pushed through all of that grime, I have been rewarded greatly. And it is just such a humbling experience that I hope that any person who wants to come along with me will take that first step and come together into the fight for understanding.
Yeah, I can imagine that, and I'm not sure exactly where you went or anything, but I can imagine that if they went into your high school in Spokane and said, somebody in this classroom is going to meet the president within, a year, I doubt anybody would have believed it, and I doubt you would have thought it would have been you. Is,
I didn't think it. Yeah, exactly. Even I didn't think that it would be me. So this has been crazy, and I'm just ready for more craziness because it's been really awesome so far.
Yeah, so that just for any of our younger viewers that are out there that end up watching this at another point in time, you never know what could happen by getting engaged.
Absolutely.
It's easy to think that your engagement doesn't matter. It's just a few phone calls, or it's just a couple door knocks, or this, that, or the other thing. But and Adair will come on to talk about later as well that these delegates are getting invited places as a result of getting to these places, and so they're the kinds of events and the types of things that you would not have access to otherwise, and that I don't think many people would imagine that they would ever have access to. And so, really getting engaged, you'd be surprised at how far getting engaged can get you, even as disappointing as it can be sometimes when you run into walls or hurdles. And so, I think I think you serve as an inspiration to a lot of other young folks that thought, oh, I might get involved. It's not worth my time. I'd rather go hang out and go do this other thing, but that you stuck with it and made as much time as you could for your other activities, I'm sure. But that you made sure that you had time for Bernie and for the political revolution and for what all of this stood for, and that to me speaks volumes, gives me inspiration and hope for our younger generations, absolutely. And so, is there anything that you think that has just been on your mind regarding either the state convention or your plans for the national convention that you're able to share with us, uh, that has just been on your mind that you want to get out there while you have this moment?
Well, I guess a couple thoughts on the state convention, which I'm sure also Adair's going to also expand on as well. It was more of a frustrating process than it was rewarding, and not necessarily because of, well, There was a lot of things that were frustrating about the entire state convention. Mostly it was because of the time they gave us, along with the resolutions and the agenda they gave us, and the people who were not informed themselves. Because of this, and here's an example of it, we had, I would say, on the first day about 7 hours or so to complete a lot of big issues involving the platform policy of the entire Democratic Party for Washington State. But if you were to combine all the questionings, the point of inquiries, the point of explanations, and the point of this and the point of that, it came up to about 3 hours wasted. It really, truly did. And many of them were questions that could either have been answered by if they had read the platform policies or if they were just listening to what Noel Frame, our permanent chair, was talking about, or a lot of other things that could have saved us time. So by the end of the day, the first day that was only based on platform policy, we had about an hour to discuss all of his resolutions, make any amendment that we wanted to, but there was no time because every time we wanted to pass an amendment, there would be a call for division or something else that was very technical and very bureaucratic that was not necessary to the party platform policy that we needed as a state to continue forward in our progressive fight. So essentially, in the end, we as a collective group, which I'm not very proud to say, passed a resolution called the Do Pass Resolution, which essentially means that we are trusting the state committee, which I trust, of course, but it would have been also nice to amend things on a more people's level, that the state committee has gone through all the resolutions, all the amendments, and has decided for themselves what should be passed and what should not be passed. And for the people of the convention doing and passing the Do Pass resolution, that means that we're putting all of the passes declared by the state committee into a tight little package and pushing it away for future approval because we had no other opinions on it. And I can promise you we had thousands of other opinions on it, but we had no time. And so the next day was all taken up by a national delegate conversation, which was absolutely acceptable, but there should have been some kind of backup plan if this situation had happened and we had no time for resolutions or amendments. So I'm a little frustrated, as you can see, but we did the best that we could with the situation that was given to us, and we passed enough resolutions that makes me content. A couple of things got a little bit out of hand. There was a couple of comments involving LGBT laws and platform policies that weren't as accepted as should have been. But overall, I wasn't really expecting any better because with that many people and every single person wanting to be a leader with their own ideas, it's very difficult to control. And many of us who were at the convention saw that Noel Frame was trying very hard to control all these people as well. She did a very good job at it by trying to be very firm, which was necessary, but there could have been so much more that could have been done that wasn't, and I'm a little bit ashamed, but there's nothing we can do about it now except go on to the national convention and hopefully push the pulse that we need as a progressive army over there.
Yes, no, and as when I was at the state convention, I witnessed most of what you described there as well, and I was disappointed. It was one of the things that came up. I was speaking with another delegate at one point, and basically it brought to my attention how little we know, whether it was Bernie supporters, Hillary supporters that were, or whether it was Bernie supporters who genuinely just didn't understand the process and didn't understand where they could have gotten the platform, how they could have read it and do those types, or just or didn't have the time or didn't go through the effort to do it, and or Hillary supporters that were stalling for time and doing things like that. That one of the ways that we could actually impress upon the Democratic Party just how important fully funding education. This is a Washington State issue, but anyway, fully funding our education system and also making sure that political education is an important component of that, civics, is by going to these meetings, disrupting them, not letting them get their things done, not letting them walk through it like they would normally walk through it, making them go through the rigmarole of doing those types of things. And so I found it kind of a weird counterbalance in that I noticed, especially with the division on the endorsement vote and in some of the other tactics that they used that were expressly used to take up time. It wasn't
Yeah.
about documenting opposition or anything along those lines. All of those could have been achieved through other ways. It was expressly to take up more time so that other resolutions, and I think one of the ones that came up as being one of the ones that was being pushed off was the superdelegate resolutions regarding what we were going to do with Washington State's superdelegates. and passing those to the state committee, I think, has reasonable amounts of concern for residents of Washington State as far as whether their opinion on superdelegates is what's going to end up coming out of the Democratic Party state chair. Like, I have as much confidence as I can in that, and I don't want to put you guys in any positions to say anything or anything, but otherwise, I do want to get Adair in here. So for those just joining us for our 5 o'clock hour, we are going to still be talking about guns. It's getting truncated as we go on, so I do still want to talk several things about the conventions, though. So for folks who are just joining us, we're talking about the Washington State Convention primarily right now. I'm going to mention just some of the things that you might have seen on Ben's show regarding Naomi in New York, their state convention. And right now, who you saw on camera and you see now is Ava, Washington State's delegate, one youngest delegate, or I believe currently the youngest delegate that we know of nationally, and is going to be in Philly representing out of Washington. And so just want to thank her for being a part of the show. And then I also want to bring Adair in. So, and also I should say before I go on that Benjamin is not going to be on today. He is one of his children is graduating from preschool, I believe. So Anoa is going to be in, but she sounds like she has a great show lined up, so make sure to stay tuned for that. It'll come on right after we're done at about 6 o'clock. The link will be in chat. Make sure to subscribe, and you can check the description for where to follow us at.